Jason heard a boisterous bang and his head snapped towards the plane's windows. What was happening? Their airplane was at that point airborne. He took a gander at his co-pilot when an individual from the lodge team came hurrying through the cockpit. A goliath multitude of birds was clearly pursuing and going after the plane. Also, they were tenacious. "Mayday! Mayday!" Jason yelled into the radio, attempting to get a troubleshoot to aviation authority. In any case, the radio just transmitted static, overwhelmed by the stunning thunder of the bird swarm. His co-pilot, Sarah, was grasping the control burden with white knuckles, frantically attempting to keep up with control of the plane. The circumstance was desperate. The birds were currently striking the plane's windows, breaking the glass with their snouts and wings. The lodge team individuals were giving their all to console the scared travelers, yet their words were scarcely discernible over the bedlam. Jason and Sarah battled to keep the plane consistent, making sharp moves to attempt to dodge the determined avian assailants. Yet, the birds were persistent, and regardless of how enthusiastically they attempted to shake them off, the multitude persevered. Attempting to shake birds. Jason attempted to shake the birds. In any case, he must be cautious. In the event that a solitary bird would raise a ruckus around town, the entire plane could go down. The birds appeared to get more forceful the harder Jason attempted to get them off his plane. Jason had no clue about why the birds were getting increasingly forceful. Jason's heart beat as he battled to keep up with control of the airplane. The circumstance was turning out to be progressively critical, and he realized that one wrong action could mean ruin. The birds had amassed around the plane, their sharp noses and wings representing a steady danger to the security of the flight. Close to him, Sarah stayed centered, her hands solidly holding the control burden. Their correspondence was short, restricted to fundamental orders as they explored through this uncommon emergency. They had no real option except to keep attempting to shake off the persistent aggressors. As the minutes delayed, Jason's brain hustled for an answer. He realized that the motors were especially powerless, and an immediate hit from one of these forceful birds could prompt disastrous motor disappointment. He radioed the circumstance to aviation authority, frantically looking for counsel or help. Not letting the plane be. In the lodge, the travelers were beginning to get restless. They felt the plane plunge and turn, and nobody was giving them a clarification. They could see the multitude of birds through the window, behaving like they were straight out of a Hitchcock film. When Jason felt certain enough to guarantee the travelers that they had everything taken care of, he realized it was past the point of no return. He didn't have any idea what was happening, how set off the birds, and what he could quiet them down. As Jason peered out the cockpit window, he could see the birds in a furor, jumping and plunging around the plane. Maybe they were on a kamikaze mission. Alarm spread among the travelers as they grasped their armrests, dread carved on their appearances. "Fine people," Jason's voice snapped over the radio, "I realize this is startling, yet we're giving our best for guarantee your security. We have alarmed aviation authority, and they are directing us through this present circumstance. If it's not too much trouble, secure your safety belts and stay in your seats. Requesting help." Jason needed to call flight control to see what his choices were. He had the inclination that it was inevitable before the birds would really have the option to crash the plane. The quantity of birds continued to increment, and they got significantly more forceful. Yet, there was an issue: he was unable to get tightly to anybody from flight control. As he proceeded to quickly dial the number, the disturbance in the air made his heart race. Sweat dribbled down his brow, and he grasped the armrests of his seat. Somewhere out there, he could see a thick run of birds drawing nearer, their wings fluttering fiercely. Alarm flooded through him as he understood it was absolutely impossible to stay away from them. Franticness drove him to attempt each correspondence channel accessible, from radio to crisis frequencies. Unexpectedly, a popping voice got through the radio. "This is flight control. We read you, Jason. Hold tight. We're sending direction to assist you with exploring through the multitude." Help washed over him as he adhered to their guidelines, barely keeping away from a devastating impact with the padded aggressors. Travelers getting terrified. The travelers could barely keep an eye out of the windows since it was shut down by birds. This obscured the entire plane, which radiated a frightening energy. The travelers became truly terrified. Some of them even began crying. Jason needed to move quickly. He went after the radio and talked in a quiet however legitimate tone. "Fine people, kindly stay situated and secure your safety belts safely. We are at present confronting what is going on, yet the flight control is attempting to direct us securely through it." He then, at that point, raced to the airline steward's station to assemble supplies, including crisis lighting, covers, and emergency treatment units. As he disseminated these things to the travelers, he attempted to console them that the circumstance was taken care of. Outside, the birds kept on amassing, however the correspondence with flight control areas of strength for stayed. They gave consistent updates on the best strategy. Jason's fast reasoning and the collaboration of both the team and travelers eased a portion of the trepidation installed. Notwithstanding the strain, a feeling of solidarity started to arise among those on the plane as they confronted this surprising test together. Plane not acquiring height. Jason attempted with all his ability to acquire height with the plane, to shake the birds. In any case, in the event that he climbed excessively steep, it would imperil everybody on the plane. Besides, the quantity of birds was so incredibly high that they began to direct the plane down. Jimmy wheezed when he saw structures drawing nearer. It was a startling sight as the plane slipped quickly, the cityscape developing bigger in the windows. Jason realized he needed to settle on a basic choice. He radioed flight control, "We're losing elevation quick, and the birds are in charge. I really want authorization to endeavor a crisis arrival." The regulator's voice popped, "Roger, Jason. Plan for crisis landing directions. We're clearing the region. Put forth a valiant effort to keep away from populated regions." Sweat beaded on Jason's brow as he grappled with the controls, attempting to keep the airplane consistent while diving. The travelers clutched their seats, their trepidation discernible. With nerves of steel, Jason guided the plane towards an open field, trusting it would be a protected landing spot. The strain inside the lodge was horrendous as they held on, risky floating over the city. They were presently floating hazardously over the city. Fortunately for Jason, he could control the plane to the open country. He understood that there was no point in attempting and gain elevation. He needed to return to the air terminal, and he needed to set down the plane. In any case, how? In the cockpit, dabs of sweat trickled from Jason's brow as he thought about his restricted choices. With his heart beating, he radioed the control tower once more, "This is Jason, we're over the city, and I really want crisis landing guidelines. The field is my main choice." The regulator answered critically, "Roger, Jason. We're directing you to a close-by airstrip. Plan for a harsh landing. We've cleared the region." Jason gritted his teeth, realizing that this was their absolute best at endurance. He made the travelers aware of support themselves for influence. As the plane slid towards the country airstrip, the pressure locally available arrived at its pinnacle. Jason's abilities would be put to a definitive test as he went for the gold arrival, wanting to take everybody back to the ground in one piece. Pivot. At last, Jason got the call to quickly pivot the plane to the closest runway. Flight control had advised them to divert to a more modest air terminal nearer to their ongoing position. Jason burned through no time and turned the plane around as quick as possible without imperiling anybody. The travelers, regardless of their trepidation, clutched their seats, their confidence in Jason unfaltering. As they moved toward the more modest air terminal, the runway appeared smaller than whatever he was utilized to, yet it was their most obvious opportunity for a protected landing. Jason directed the airplane with accuracy, feeling the heaviness of obligation on his shoulders. The control pinnacle's directions were clear and succinct. The unease inside the lodge was intense as Jason chose to follow the instructions. The travelers observed restlessly through the windows, their countenances squeezed against the glass, seeking divine intervention that their trial would before long be finished. Jason could feel the dabs of sweat shaping on his temple as he kept up with his concentration. Not entirely settled to set down the plane securely regardless of the expense. Getting hazardous. It was currently getting truly hazardous. By turning the plane, they hit 2 or 3 birds, which appeared to set off them significantly more. The birds presently continued to raise a ruckus around town, and little breaks began to show in the windows. The travelers heaved as the choppiness increased. Jason ground his teeth, attempting to keep up with control. He radioed flight control, "We have numerous bird strikes, and the circumstance is disintegrating quickly. We really want prompt direction." The regulator's voice was stressed, "Hang tight, Jason. We're putting forth a valiant effort. Remain on track for the more modest air terminal." Regardless of the rising turmoil, still up in the air, he realized there was no way but forward. As the plane kept on being pounded by the enraged birds, he zeroed in on getting everybody to that more modest air terminal securely, imploring that they could endure this nerve-wracking difficulty.